Hello guys, it's Shlomi Arbeitman and today we're going to be talking about realism, logic and veracity in Total War Arena. This is part 1 of my series on the concepts mentioned before. The series is based on my opinion alone and might be subjective to a certain degree. In this part of the series, I will talk about Total War Arena as a whole, while other parts might focus on certain units or mechanics of the game. My name is Dominic, aka Shlomi Arbeitman. I've started playing Total War Arena during the closed beta testing, where I managed to claim the hero title. I also have some experience playing other MOBAs, especially League of Legends, and strategy games, which includes most games of the Total War series. When it comes to Total War Arena, I don't think the game is currently in a bad state, but there's always room for improvement. This series is not supposed to be a rant about parts of the game I don't like, but will be critical of certain issues while trying to provide solutions to the problems I see with this game. Please keep in mind that Total War Arena is still an open beta and might change pretty fast, so chances are always that some issues are already outdated if you watch this video at a later time. But enough with the preliminary skirmishing, let's get to it. When it comes to video games, realism is a fine concept, but ultimately not really a desirable one. While realism usually has the potential to give an enticing challenge for the players, there might not be too many people who would want their RPG character to need weeks or even months for an injury to heal. In addition, sticking too strictly to realism doesn't go well with trying to balance a game. This is why multiplayer games are having an even harder time to be somewhat realistic. In a single player game, certain characters, weapons, units, abilities, etc. might just be better or stronger than others. You will have to overcome AI foes, and the game has all the tools to make it as difficult as the developers or the players want it to be. That is why a lot of single player games successfully strive to be more realistic. In multiplayer games in general, and especially in Total War Arena, things are looking a bit different. Genre-wise, Total War Arena places somewhere in between the MOBA and the strategy genre. Both know the concepts of soft and hard counters, as well as weapon triangle or rock, paper, scissors mechanics. Of course, these are merely names for the more intricate inner workings of Total War Arena. But history shows us that realism goes another way when it comes to balancing. Certain types of warfare were replaced by more advanced ones. Certain weapons didn't stand the test of time, and some units are way more valuable in pitched battles than others. But the community in general still wants all, or at least most, of the unit types to be a part of Total War Arena battles. This poses a bit of a dilemma when trying to bring realism and balancing into accordance. There are reasons, historically, why the Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean and thus dominated the other factions currently represented in Total War Arena. While it is not the Roman warfare alone that made the Roman Empire Goliath, it gave them the edge in most of their conflicts. On the other hand, some factions didn't really have that kind of open conflict or even pitched battles between them, and some commanders didn't face each other in combat or even lived at the same time for that matter. And after crossing of history, we would still have to go through physics and other disciplines to achieve complete realism. Even if you think the things I mentioned are just some minor breaches of realism, it becomes harder and harder to draw the line. Which brings me to the second concept, logic. Logic, in contrast to realism, doesn't depend on real life as a unit of measurement, at least not that much. The concept is pretty simple. Each game lays down its own set of rules, and as long as this set of rules applies to everything happening in the game has a coherent video game logic. For example, pikes in Total War Arena have a kill zone when their pikes are down. Every unit, except dogs, will get stabbed down when entering that zone, friend or foe. While it might not be realistic that pikemen will try to kill everything that enters the area in front of them without further thought, the game is designed that way, and players know what to expect. Some of those designs are a bit confusing and don't feel right. For example, archers shooting way past their range when a fast unit leaves their range. In addition, logic should follow an a fortiori principle. To put it simple, if a bullet can pierce through heavy armor, it should certainly pierce through light armor as well. If getting flanked from the side causes moral damage, getting attacked in the rear should certainly cause moral damage. Total War Arena has built its own concept of historical accuracy and coherent physics, and as long as each unit, commander, and ability would abide this concept, players will be happy. At least in theory. It is currently not possible to test this hypothesis, since there are still a lot of game mechanics breaking Total War Arena's concept of logic. Especially the a fortiori principle gets violated a lot, and I will be talking about this in videos focusing on those game elements. But there is another aspect that has the potential to make players unhappy. Apart from breaches in logic, and the desire of some players that their playstyle should be more powerful than other playstyles, let's call this concept veracity. A huge factor of most games is if the player feels like his or her actions have the proper effect on the environment and vice versa. This includes, but is not limited to, game mechanics. To put it simple, if you watch a fight scene in a movie, it would seem really odd if the hero blocks a warhammer swung by his muscular, bulky opponent by simply putting a tiny dagger between his face and the hammerhead. There is a lot of overlap with video game logic, especially the a fortiori principle mentioned before, and additionally, the subjective aspect of the concept makes it difficult to pinpoint if something feels right or not. Another factor when it comes to veracity are the audio-visual effects. Models, model size, animations, and sound effects make a lot of difference on what we expect in certain situations. If there's a huge, loud explosion, we kind of expect it to annihilate anything in the blast radius that's not protected well enough. As you can see, the concept of veracity is the softest of the three concepts presented, with the least defined borders and the most subjective influences. Now that I have explained these three concepts, which should influence game design, game mechanics and balancing, I'm going to put various units, abilities and mechanics under scrutiny, using these three concepts as measurement. But this will be part of the coming videos. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate if you leave a like and subscribe. I'm open to any suggestions regarding topics to talk about, as well as the format of the series and details in my videos. If you want, you can also follow me on Twitch, Facebook or Twitter. You can find the links in the description below the video. Have a good day and see you on the battlefield, Commanders.